Welcome to the United States of America. My name is Sebastian Plate, and I will be your host for the duration of this broadcast. We have been given $1 million from NASA in order to produce this broadcast to best demonstrate American exceptionalism. We have compiled a list of people, documents, events, and several artifacts that best demonstrate American exceptionalism through anything from nuclear power to leading the world in innovation or writing extremely important documents for the protection of this nation. We have produced this exceptional broadcast by the orders of our exceptional commander, Mr. Sando, and we hope that if you really are out there, you all see that the United States of America is the most exceptional nation in the world. So please, sit back and enjoy the show.
We'll start with our first person, Benjamin Franklin.
When looking through the history of America for its most exceptional people, Benjamin Franklin, from the earliest days of the country, definitely catches the eye. His success in literature included the publication of Poor Richard's Almanac. Poor Richard is done! And his successes in science included his famous kite and key experiment. However, it was his dedication to the unification of the colonies that left the most lasting impact on America. In 1754, Benjamin Franklin created the Join or Die political cartoon in the Pennsylvania Gazette. This political cartoon was originally created to unify the colonists against the French and Indians, but later took on a new meaning and inspired many colonists to yearn for independence and unification. In 1754, he also proposed the Albany Plan for the Union. Many aspects of this plan were later associated in the Articles of Confederation. Franklin continued to play a key role in the founding of America by serving on the Second Continental Congress and aiding in the construction of the Declaration of Independence, as well as being an ambassador to France, working for an alliance against Britain. After achieving independence, he also attended the Constitutional Convention. He was arguably the most influential person during the founding of America, and his excellence was known not only in America, but across the Atlantic as well. Across the globe, he was known as one of the greatest minds of the time period and one of the greatest thinkers of all time. His influence encompassed all areas of society, from literature to science and politics. His importance to the nation is studied in all history classes today, also resulted in his face appearing to the nation's most valued bill, the $100 bill, and his everlasting notoriety as the founding father of America.
Now we will move on to one of our documents, Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address.
We are all Republicans, and we are all Federalists.
Thomas Jefferson's inaugural address on May 4th, 1801, was one of the biggest moments in American history. At a time when many were unsure of the ability of a democratic government to survive, this moment ensured to Americans that the country would indeed make it. Jefferson's inaugural address marks the first peaceful transition of power in the American government. The control of the government shifted from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans.
Please welcome our esteemed historian, Johnny Haimes.
This address served to ensure the American people that this victory was not just for the Democratic Republicans, but for all Americans. By saying that we are all Federalists and all Republicans, Jefferson united the American people by pointing out that both parties were loyal to the same Constitution and principles.
I know, indeed, that some honest men fear that a Republican government cannot be strong. That is, this government is not strong enough. I believe this, on the contrary, the strongest government on earth.
Jefferson understood the importance of the change in political parties and what it meant to the future of the United States. He made this clear to all who were listening by saying that this transfer of power made the United States the strongest government on earth. If the country could survive a complete change in the party in control of the government, what couldn't they survive? This address exhibited America's exceptionalism, that they could undergo such a transfer in power peacefully. This had global significance as Jefferson was also able to tell the world that this government would survive and be the strongest in the world. America was able to prove to the world that the democratic system of government would be successful.
Now, for an inspirational artifact, the Star-Spangled Banner.
The national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, can be recited verbatim by any American. Anyone can monotonously recite the words written by Francis Scott Key. However, few know how this marvelous cultural artifact came to be.
Here we have a scene from the bombing of Fort Henry and the playing of the national anthem.
Go. During the War of 1812, America was battling Britain to assure their independence. It was the first great showing of American pride and patriotism. On September 3rd, 1814, British warships cascaded bombs and rockets on Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Maryland. The bombing proceeded for 25 hours, and the nation held their breath, awaiting the fates of the forts. By the next morning, Francis Scott Key, who was aboard a ship a few miles off the coast, gazed on during the dawn's early light and could make out an American flag standing tall above Fort Henry. As the British withdrew, Key could see the U.S. had survived the battle and halted the enemy advance. The sight compelled him to write the Star-Spangled Banner, which eventually became the national anthem of America. The song was a symbol of America's triumph and endurance. It produced an incredible patriotic sense among the nation, showing the growing strength and independence in the U.S. These people, who still had some speculation as to whether or not revolting against Britain was a good idea, united and came together as the citizens of none other than the country they have. Even in its early years, America displayed how they were always one step ahead of the rest of the world. The flag also gained universal significance due to the song. It portrayed the flag as the symbol of democracy throughout the world and as the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Now, for another inspirational American, we have Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln is among the most famous Americans of all time. Though his life was cut short, he was able to accomplish so much for the good of our nation.
Please welcome back another esteemed historian, Chris Beaufils.
Lincoln is most famous for his role in the abolition of slavery, passing the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. His most important contribution to the U.S. was his role in the preservation of the Union. In one of the most difficult times in U.S. history, Lincoln understood the importance of keeping the South in the Union. After the South seceded, Lincoln knew that he needed to get them back to keep the Union strong. To do so, he masterfully managed the Union Army, switching generals and changing tactics to ensure success. Not only was Lincoln savvy in maintaining the Union, but he was one of the first presidents to recognize the rights of African Americans. He viewed slaves as people as well, and therefore believed that they deserved equal rights, for America was truly the land of the free. His vision of equality was groundbreaking, and he was a firm leader for abolitionists. The tragic end to Honest Abe's life betrayed just how exceptional he truly was. The hero of the Union was shot and killed abruptly, just as America was beginning Reconstruction after the Civil War. the nation came together to mourn his loss and attempted to carry out his dreams for the U.S. Only a president as excellent as Lincoln could have had such an impact after death, for his lasting legacy is one that all presidents and leaders around the world look up to.
For our next artifact, we have the light bulb, invented by Thomas Edison.
America is well known around the world for their excellence in innovation. From the Model T car to the iPad, America has constantly been creating new ways to advance and become more exceptional. In fact, just the concept of continuous innovation is exceptional in itself. Perhaps the invention that best symbolizes the idea of excellence in innovation is the light bulb. The light bulb was invented by Thomas Alva Edison in 1879 as he presented it to many in his home of Menlo Park. Edison had failed many times, but showed incredible perseverance as he tried over and over again to perfect his creation. The light bulb stands out as perhaps one of his greatest creations and one of the greatest innovations in the world. Just imagine a world without light bulbs. Unthinkable, right? This incredible invention can be attributed to the genius of a small group of Americans. But this pattern is common throughout all of American history. Countless Americans have come up with useful inventions and strategies to better the world and the lives of people everywhere. The inventiveness that lies in the American spirit surpasses citizens of all other nations and has elevated the United States to the exceptional level it is at today. The light bulb shines as one of the greatest displays of this inventiveness and as one of the greatest inventions in America as well as in the world's history.
Now we move to another amazing artifact, the Wright brothers plane.
Innovation, a quality that many nations strive for, yet only one truly achieves. This nation, America.
Air travel was a perplexing puzzle through late 19th and early 20th century. Two American innovators, Orville and Wilbur Wright, finally made the grassroots advancements with the creation of the flight. On December 17, 1903, at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the 1903 Wright Flyer became the first powered heavy-than-air machine to achieve controlled, sustained flight with a pilot aboard. It flew forward without losing speed and landed at a point as high as from which it started. With Orville Wright as pilot, the airplane took off from a launching rail and flew for 12 seconds and a distance of 37 meters or 120 feet. The airplane was flown 3 more times that day, with Orville and his brother Wilbur alternating as pilots. The longest flight, with Wilbur at the controls, was 260 meters or 852 feet and lasted exactly 59 seconds. The Flyer, designed and built by the Wright brothers, was one step in a broad experimental program that began in 1899 with their first kite and concluded in 1905 when they built the first truly practical airplane. The basic problems of mechanical flight, lift, propulsion, and control were solved in the Wright design. This was made possible by the excellence of America. America has always been in first, in this case, first in flight. Here we have a video of the first ever flights of Orville Wright.
Today, we'll attempt the first sustained flight.
Go, man.
we have made the first sustained flight.
For another incredible artifact, we have the Statue of Liberty.
One of the most significant American artifacts is the Statue of Liberty. Here we have a bit of its history before we get into its exceptional nature. Sculptor Frederick Augustine Bartholdi was commissioned to design a sculpture in the year 1876 in mind for completion to commemorate the centennial of the American Declaration of Independence. Alexander Gustave Eiffel, the designer of the Eiffel Tower, was commissioned to design the massive iron pylon and secondary skeletal framework, which allows the statue's copper skin to move independently yet stand upright. The story of the Statue of Liberty and her island has been one of change. The statue is placed upon a granite pedestal inside the courtyard of the star-shaped walls of Fort Wood. On September 7, 1937, jurisdiction was enlarged to encompass all of Burlock's Island, and in 1956, the island's name was changed to Liberty Island. The Statue of Liberty underwent a lot of changes in significance since its entry into the United States. It began as just a statue and gradually increased its global notoriety. It became a symbol for America, the United Nations, and eventually the world, which led to the reopening of the national park in 1984. The Statue of Liberty has existed as a monument to liberty and freedom. Aside from its French origins, it is a representation of Lady Liberty and stands for everything that America was founded upon. The statue also stands next to Ellis Island and was the first thing that all of the immigrants saw when entering the United States of America. When an immigrant came into the United States and looked out the window of their ship, they saw Lady Liberty, a symbol of their freedom from oppression and the brightness of the future of the American dream. It symbolized freedom, liberty, prosperity, and the beginning of a new life. It is one of the most exceptional and extraordinary artifacts still remnant in America and will always stand as one of the greatest monuments of freedom throughout the entire world.
Now we move to an exceptional event, also known as the Manhattan Project.
Now we have another remarkable American accomplishment called the Manhattan Project. It consisted of a group of scientists gathered in the United States to build a successful and effective nuclear bomb. Basically, on the eve of World War II, Germany had begun research on nuclear weaponry. The United States knew that it would have catastrophic results, so we took matters into our own hands. Through the hands of American scientists and the help of German physicists such as Albert Einstein, we were able to successfully use uranium and plutonium in nuclear fission, a new milestone in nuclear engineering.
Here we have the testing of the first nuclear bomb.
Here we have film of scientists working in Los Alamos, New Mexico, the second site of the Manhattan Project. You see them working non-stop, very hard, efficiently, and diligently on this project.
I have the solution.
This determination led to the testing of the first atomic bomb and eventually to the demonstration of global power in the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Manhattan Project epitomizes American exceptionalism in every aspect. It displayed our remarkable work ethic, diligence, effectivity, and not only that, but we became the forerunners in the nuclear arms race. We displayed how we cannot be beat, how America will always remain a global power. At the conclusion of the Manhattan Project, the bombings in Japan, we proved that we are a global power and that we have extraordinary military capacities. It was a victory in the scientific field as a breakthrough in nuclear technology. It was an engineering breakthrough as we designed the first weapon of mass destruction and gained the United States international notoriety, instituting the United States as the leading global power.
Our next significant document, we have chosen John F. Kennedy's presidential inaugural address. We would have him talk about it, but unfortunately he was assassinated. So, President John F. Kennedy's inaugural address in 1961 is classified as the second best speech in the entire 20th century. The message he delivered gave hope to the American people who felt threatened by the enduring Cold War with the Soviet Union. JFK's speech was momentous in that it united the people and gave them faith in their country. The speech embodies American exceptionalism for a plethora of reasons. It made waves all over the earth as Kennedy's vision for improving the lives of the people all over the world encouraged many Americans to lead the way when it came to public service. He kindled the spirits of Americans in the fight against enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Kennedy urged the American people to be the leaders of the world, not only regarding public service, but in researching and inventing as well. As he spoke the famous words, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Millions were filled with the desire to serve the country in any way they could. The U.S. reacted better than any other country ever could, for what makes America great is their desire to be leaders and to set the global standard, which was fueled by Kennedy's address. His pledge to defend liberty also set the stage for the future of the country as world leaders. His eloquent speech further established America as the strongest world power and as pioneers heading into the future. Ultimately, JFK showed that America is not an exceptional nation due to what it does for its people, but it is exceptional due to the citizens' strength, courage, and willingness to serve their nation and be leaders for the rest of the nations around the world. The excellence of the United States of America lies within its people, and that was the message of President John F. Kennedy. Now, for our last exceptional event, we have the landing of the man on the moon. For thousands of years, man had looked to the heavens and dreamed of walking on the moon. In 1969, as part of the Apollo 11 mission, Neil Armstrong became the very first to accomplish that dream, followed only minutes later by Buzz Aldrin. Their accomplishment placed the United States ahead of the Soviets in the space race and gave people around the world the hope of future space exploration. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 on October 4th, 1957, the United States was surprised to find themselves behind in the space race. Still behind the Soviets in the space race 4 years later, President John F. Kennedy gave inspiration and hope to the American people in his speech to Congress on May 25, 1961, in which he stated, "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth." Landing the man on the moon was one of the most important events in American history, as it was one of the first achievements in the aerospace sector. We established world dominance, as once again we were able to do the unimaginable. We showed our dominance, determination to succeed, and determination to prove that we are the best and strongest nation in the world. It is a constant theme that has been demonstrated throughout time, as America has tried to show time after time that we are and that we will always be the leading global power and the strongest nation in the world.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.